everyone. Here we are. It is Farmcraft 2024. We are continuing through the preseason. So excited to have you all with us, both those of you watching and learning, and also look at this lineup that we have today. A lot of new faces and a lot of fun conversation to happen. So, without further ado, we're going to do, as always, a round robin of introductions. Johnny, you are joining us for the first time from the Department of State. Go ahead and introduce yourself, even though I just said half of probably what you were going to say.
Oh, that's totally fine. Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny Fitzgerald, and I am in the Office of Agricultural Policy at the Department of State, where we help build Minecraft. I'm subbing in for Niles, who's normally the representative from our team who does these. But super excited to jump in and looking forward to a good stream.
Great, thank you. Those you haven't seen Johnny's face before, but he is working behind the scenes all the time to make Farmcraft happen. So it's really special that you're able to join us today. We're going to save Jonathan for last, so I'm just going to keep going around. Brian.
Hey everybody, Brian from Clever Like. We're a game studio and an education company, so we build all these exciting educational learning opportunities inside your favorite video games, and we get to do that for a living, so aren't we lucky?
You are very lucky. And who else does that for a living?
I also do that for a living, so I'm even luckier because, I don't have to do all of the really hard stuff at the top. I get to just have the fun part and then, do the parts that I love, all the educational aspects. So I'm Eric. I'm the education content producer for Clever Like and have been, I guess, the co-project lead. I don't even know what my title is anymore for this project for 4 years now. And Claire, we keep talking about, I can't believe it's been 4 years. I can't believe we're almost halfway through this season already.
I agree.
Like the preseason is almost over. And we're almost ready to launch the regular season, and that's just mind blowing. So we'll be saying the same thing about season 5, like a week from now. I mean, I have no idea.
Before we know it. And we have been getting sneak peeks of the world this year, and it is so cool and very different. So I think I'm just not going to say any more about it. But also, I just was thinking Eric is, they're talking about how they developed this game. So in Discord, anytime I go to message Eric, it always says he's playing Minecraft. And I love that that's his job description, is that he's playing Minecraft all the time. I mean,
I have friends who are always like, it says Eric's playing Minecraft, he must be working. Like that's my life now, and I'm okay with it.
That's pretty funny. And we're so lucky to have this group of students with us. Just a quick overview. They live in Georgia. And in Georgia this year, we have a Georgia Farmcraft going on. And they actually have special challenges that have been developed for them for the preseason. They're going to all join us in the regular season world. But it's been really fun to get to know them, and for me personally to learn a little bit more about that Georgia agriculture. And this is something that we're considering for the future because it's going so well. So if you live somewhere not the state of Georgia and you're interested in this, then reach out to us and let's talk about what it would take to make a custom Farmcraft challenge happen for you that reflects the agriculture in your region. So that is a whole lot of preamble, but ladies, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm Indus, and all 3 of us are students of Brooklyn, and we're all in basic agriculture science right now.
I'm Makariana. Apologies for any background noise. The water for our aquaponics lab is in the background, so it's a bit loud.
I'm Rin.
Hi, great to meet you all. And did you notice she said, sorry for the noise, we have an aquaponics lab in our background at our high school? How cool is that? Jonathan, have you seen many of those around?
No, I haven't. No, this is really, really cool. What an uncommon thing. It's just so awesome.
Right. Yeah. Talk about the hands-on learning. And so, Jonathan, we're really glad to have you with us today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Claire. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan McFadden. I'm a researcher at the U.S. Department of Agriculture in an agency called the Economic Research Service. And, I study the economics, essentially, of precision agriculture and digital agriculture. So things like what these digital tools are and how farmers can use them in a way that's profitable for them, while also helping to conserve things like natural resources.
That's really cool. So I think we're just going to take a minute and talk with Jonathan and learn a little bit from him about his specialty. And then in a few minutes, we'll dive in and see some of the challenges that others have submitted. But I'm curious, Jonathan, in that research that you're doing, how much of that is applied and used in the United States versus globally? And I ask that because in this challenge, as we will see in a few minutes when we look at the video submitted, we have students participating from all around the world.
Yeah, great question, Claire. So my focus is, on the United States, but also in other countries around the world. And a lot of these technologies are being used in the U.S., being developed in the U.S. and sold in the U.S., but they're also being developed across the world and sold in many other countries. So just to give an example of that, I'm looking at how these technologies are used in Canada, Mexico. I have a lot of contacts with folks over in Japan and Korea, so I'm very interested in how they're using these types of technologies, as well as places in South America, places like Colombia and areas of Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So really, it's all over the board, and farming is so diverse. And so how these technologies are used in one country can be very different from how they're used in another country. It depends on things like the size of your farm, how hilly your farm is, how rocky it is, water requirements, and really a whole host of a lot of different things.
All right, I'm going to open this up. I'm happy to ask questions, but I also want to leave it to the group and especially the students if you have questions that you wanted to ask.
So I have a question because, as we're going through this development process and creating the world, there are things that we do in Minecraft that we try to make as reflective as reality or a reflection of reality. And there are things we still want to keep gamified and fun and interesting and potentially even like a peek into the future, if you will. So one of the things that's going to come up in conversation today is, even though both are the technologies that are being used today that are, let me put it this way. How do we define technology, right? So if I used to teach STEM and engineering as part of it, and I would hold up a pencil and say, believe it or not, this is technology. Like, we don't always have to think of technology as the computers or all that. So in agriculture, how are we defining technology? And how do you define technology?
Yeah, what a great question, River. Yeah, so broad and philosophic. I love it. I think your example of a pencil is great. That certainly is a technology. I would sort of think of them mainly as tools. What's a tool that a farmer can use to help lighten the load, so to speak, to help improve their productivity, their crop output or their livestock output. And so a lot of different things can be a technology. So something that we were talking a lot about, say 20 or 30 years ago, were things like a soil map. So you can take samples of your soils and have them shipped off to a lab and do some analysis, and then you'll know sort of on your farm and in your fields the various physical makeup and the chemical makeup of your soils, where you have nutrients, where you need more nutrients, if your soils are more like clay, if they're more like silt or sand, or what have you. And these are just physical paper maps, and so fairly low tech as we might imagine. But then once you start uploading maps to the cloud or your computer, and then layering it with other maps, so maps of, say, how much corn you produced, or soybeans, or rice, or millet, or what have you, quinoa. Once you start sort of layering all these maps together, you can really get some new insights about what you should be doing for next season, when you should be planting, when you should be harvesting, and so on. And so, I tend to think of technology as something that really, spans a wide range, from tools as basic as a paper map all the way up to a robot that's going to be doing, virtually any task that you could dream up. So there's a wide spectrum there.
What are some examples of tools and technologies that help monitor crops and livestock?
Okay, great. Yeah, great question. So it's such a great question. There's so many really, really interesting things. So, just to kind of go back to this example of a soil map, there's a new digital tool called a yield monitor that helps farmers, pinpoint exactly what their output is in any given part of their field. And the technology is a little complex, but basically what happens is, as the farmer is driving their harvester through the field, the crop that's being harvested gets temporarily put into storage. And so what the yield monitor is doing is sort of measuring how quickly the crop is flowing into the storage. And just based on that, it can tell, what the yield is, how much output per measure of land, like an acre or a hectare, for example. So that's sort of one thing. Another cool digital technology that we're seeing a lot more frequently used are drones. So, drones are just basically cameras attached to a platform with a motor and basically has wings. A lot of times you'll see sort of these pretty small things hovering above farmers' fields. And they have what are called rotors, or sort of the swirling blades used by helicopters, except on a much, much smaller scale. And so you have drones. And if you can imagine something like a remote-controlled car, it's kind of like a remote-controlled miniature helicopter that you fly with literally a controller. And so the farmer can be standing just outside the house or, in one part of their field and be flying this piece of equipment, this drone, hundreds of feet away, if not further, and know exactly what's happening down on the ground below. They can see it, in real time, and they can record it if they'd like. So that's a really cool thing. And using that, they can monitor, the growth of their plants, if things look maybe perhaps flooded, or if things maybe look a little like they're having a drought, or if they need more fertilizer. And so those would be examples for crops. And then, for livestock, it's really interesting. For dairy cows, there are things that kind of look like Fitbits, Fitbits for dairy cows, actual individual sensors that the cows wear that quite literally measure their steps. Not only do they measure the steps, but they measure sort of the pattern of movements and the intensity of movements too. So the farmer can kind of get a sense of, is my cow moving a little too slowly, maybe too quickly? Are they scared? And things like that. And then same idea with other types of livestock. If you imagine pigs or other animals with cameras in a barn, cameras are getting better at detecting, this is my pig, this is not a pig, this is something else. And based on that, they can kind of figure out if my pig is healthy. So
That's
lots
funny.
of cool things.
We always
There, I
joke
think
about
we
putting
have
we always joke about putting a Fitbit on our dog because she runs around and we're like, how many steps?
Mhm.
When we go on a walk, I'd say she easily does 5 times as many steps as all the rest of us.
They have twice as many legs, but now I'm
Well,
thinking that
each
next
leg
year's
does 5 times as many. Yes.
next year's Farmcraft logo, keep it in mind. Cow. We always have the cow. We need to throw
Yes.
a Fitbit on the cow.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, 100%, 100%. Jonathan, how many relatively, how expensive is all this technology? Are average farmers able to implement and use all of this?
Yeah, great question. So yield monitors that I mentioned earlier, those have been around for a while now. They're getting a little bit more sophisticated, but here in the U.S. they're used pretty widely, and in other countries too. Places like Canada, the U.K., and and in other places that grow that tend to have larger farms that grow with a lot more area basically. But those are relatively inexpensive. The same with drones too. Drones have been around now for several years. They're not, just hot off the press, so to speak. And, depending on what kind of drone you get, they can be expensive, especially if you want your drone to apply fertilizer or to apply weed killers. Those can be, very pricey. But for just the sort of a smaller drone where you're just sort of using it to fly over your fields and just sort of check them out, not too bad. On the livestock side of things, the step counters, those can be a little pricey. Again, it really depends on the type of quality you want, if you want them to do a lot of other things. But something I didn't mention earlier is robotic milking. So fully automated milking of dairy cows, and those are pretty expensive right now. Their use is fairly limited, mainly because of how expensive they are. But we know that new technologies are coming out all the time, and we know that the companies are getting better at making things with lower costs. So, I think eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, I grew up, I'd say not in farmland, but lots of really small, a lot of people around us had like 5 or 10 acre parcel. I'm just going to say, if you've never milked a cow, just the idea of automated milking is crazy, because milking a cow, I mean, it's an experience I think everyone should have.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Students, did you have anything else you wanted to ask, or otherwise we can continue on?
Um, when you were talking about the automated milking, how does that work? Can it be used for other types of animals or repurposed?
Yeah, good question. So, yeah, there are a lot of different steps in the milking process that, it begins with actually getting the cow, into the parlor, getting them into the area where you're going to milk them. And then usually what you want to do is, take a little bit of milk and sort of examine the quality and just sort of check that the cow is healthy. But eventually you want to wash, the udders. And then with automatic milking, basically all of it's done. So getting the cow into the barn, checking, doing a health check, applying a wipe to the udders, and then actually attaching the machine. There's actually essentially some suction cups that you attach to the dairy cow, and then out pumps the milk. And then once you're done, once the cow is done being milked, you have to, again, sort of wash the cow, and then you have to have the cow exit from the parlor, from the area where the cow is being milked. And all of that is automated. And so it really works with a lot of different sensors, basically, a lot of different sensors and a lot of automated equipment, a lot of automated arms that attach, the vacuums and the places where they need to go to get the milk, from the cows. But in terms of, automation for other livestock, I think people are looking into this for like, sheep and goat milk and things like that. I'm not sure if those have been on, widely developed and widely used yet, but I know it's something that they're looking into. Automated technologies for say pigs and chickens, are also there, but those at this stage they tend to be cameras in, say, a chicken house, for example, just to sort of monitor what's going on, to make sure the animals are healthy, and to make sure the indoor air environment is still good and high quality and things like that. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see sort of the wide range of technologies being used and what's going to be coming out in the next few years.
So
I did want to make an observation, if that's okay.
Yes.
So when you were talking earlier about the farm, you're talking about take a soil sample, send it to the lab gives you the report, and you do something with that. And you're also talking a lot about sensors and automation. And so I wanted to kind of make that connection that the idea of like going out, grabbing some soil, mailing it somewhere, waiting for them to look at it and send you a response is like a really slow sensor. Right. And so because you're getting some feedback about that scenario, but the ability to automate gets lost because you're losing the immediate feedback. Like a camera could see something and respond to what it sees. To have to see something, mail out a picture, mail it out to be developed and come back and then look at it and then do something is quite a delay. Is there, in talking about sensors is kind of like the entry to automation, like is there something that's being done like in the farm, in the crops, that's helping tighten that feedback loop on those sensors?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. So yeah, just a couple of different things. So with the soil maps, we've had now for a few years, essentially pieces of equipment that the farmer can pull, behind themselves in the tractor, that actually measure soil properties right there, on the go sensing. And so a lot of farmers are starting to look into that and use that on the farms. They tend to measure a lot of the same things as the, soil samples that you mail and have a lab analyze. They don't necessarily measure all the things, but they measure, a pretty good chunk of them. And so you have more immediacy there. And then the other thing I would say that we're seeing that's really cool and exciting is essentially use of robots, in the field. So robotic weed management. So there are now technologies that farmers have in their fields that can kind of sense, this is a weed and this is my crop, immediately, with a delay of 1/100th of a millisecond or even less. And then if it's a weed, they use lasers. They use lasers on the weed, and then the crop stays, right where it is. And it doesn't have to be a laser. It could be, some of them shoot like a blast of water, some of them shoot like a blast of air, but just immediate impact. And it really cuts down on things like soil compaction and drift of chemicals that you don't want going off into the air or into a water source. And so yeah, we're seeing really a tightening of a lot of things. But great question, Brian.
I'm foreseeing
It's an
some
important theme, too.
analogies with Farmcraft when all of a sudden those beautiful flowers start popping up, right, students? And you're going over like, get rid of that, but don't get rid of all the crops around it at the same time. It's the same philosophy, maybe a little bit more precise than what we're doing in Farmcraft, but it is the same idea for sure. Jonathan, one of the things that we are focused on a lot in Farmcraft is global food security. And, we understand that by farming more efficiently and effectively, we're able to produce more food. Our goal this year in learning about all these different ways of using technology is that we'll understand how you can grow food in many more places and make it more locally available. So I'm just wondering, how do you think technology plays a role in that, in global food security?
Yeah, another, really a really great question. So I think, a lot of different things, if we think about just using things like yield monitors, yield maps, and soil maps, and so on to really improve, the amount that we're producing. We can have less crop failure, by using a lot of these technologies. So, for example, if we have better weather forecasting apps, there's a lot of development going into trying to have, season-long forecasts. So we know now our forecasts, when we check the weather, they're pretty good for this week. We can get a good reading on temperature and rainfall and things like humidity and pressure. But next week, they're not so great. And then the week after that, accuracy really starts to trail off. And so there have been a lot of really exciting, efforts in the science about, weather forecasting. And we're starting to see some improvements. So getting better weather forecasts, into the hands of farmers, via, cell phones or smartphones or even just broadcast on TV would be, really a huge thing. And I guess another thing, sort of to your point, Claire, we have this thing called controlled environment agriculture, CEA, which is a mouthful, I know, but that's just a long way of talking about, indoor farming, essentially. So things like vertical farming. And so if we think about things like food access and local food access, that really has the potential to help with that. You can basically vertically layer the soils that you have, plant crops in an area that has just really limited space. It really helps to conserve land. And then, that might be a couple of miles or kilometers away, and you might be able to pick it up at your local market, thus improving, availability, affordability, and in some cases, nutritional outcomes too, if you're able to get, a more varied diet or fresher fruits and vegetables. So it's really a win-win, I think, for everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking at the background of the students, which is exactly a model. On days when it rains outside, does it rain inside your building?
No, the water in here is actually filtered through the fish tanks, and then any nutrients that the fish give, it gets back to the plants, and the plants give the fish oxygen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a completely independent system, right? It's not reliant on, is it sunny outside? Is it raining? Oh no, there's a massive storm moving through and everything's going to get, blown and uprooted, and it's just all contained. Awesome. So thank you so much. We've talked a lot about these aspects, but we want to not ignore the fact that we did have students submit some challenges. And so what we would like to do is take a minute and look at some of the submissions that we received.
And it wouldn't be a Minecraft stream without some Minecraft. We got to get some Minecraft
exactly
on the screen, right?
Exactly. Let's get playing.
So we did choose a few to share. The first one is from Team Kieri in Japan. So I want to share that one. And Jonathan, some of the things you were just mentioning, you're going to see in their video. So the students are definitely taking these things to heart and demonstrating their knowledge in Minecraft. So let's take a look.
Hi Dudu, we are Team Katie. We thought about urban farming, so I came up with the idea of building a farm on the roof of the school. There is an effect that can be obtained by building a farm on the roof of the school and giving students the expensive of growing vegetables.
You can improve your communication skills by collaborating with a student in process of making. You can learn how hard ways to work. By repeating failures and successes, you can learn from failures.
With this advantage, it may be possible to solve the shortage of successes for crop operator in Japan. Growing vegetable in the city or leads to an improvement in the heat island effect. By having consumers nearby, you can get more crops to them faster. The story I would like to tell you that by cultivating it in school you can learn more, practically in class such as product development and marketing. Here is our answer.
They covered so many things.
Very
So
rapidly
many-
too, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that, you know, they really approached it from like sort of the classroom or student experience and the value of that experience, and you know what sort of it could lead to in the future, what the benefit of it would be.
Right.
I guess I would ask the students based on that, like how much of that of what they talked about is reflected in what you're doing in the classroom. Like how are those experiences kind of shaping your views of agriculture, of what potentials you see for the future of agriculture, your potential career paths in agriculture?
Okay. Well, I thought it was really cool how they were like making the point they made about how it could help certain places that don't have a lot of land area or arable land, because they were farming on top of buildings and stuff. I think that was so cool, because Japan doesn't have a lot of they have a lot of mountainous regions, so that could like really help in places where they can't really farm like on the arable land.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
the whole goal of this challenge was to kind of take a look into those non-traditional farming practices, especially if you live in an area where non-traditional farming isn't the most viable option. So I
Yeah.
think they did a great job.
Exactly. All right. And the next video that we have to share, Eric.
Yep, is from Team Mercury in Taiwan. And I love this one because they took it to like the most extreme. Like, what's the most extreme situation where non-traditional farming might be needed? And they get there and they live up to their name a little bit. So let's take a look at Team Mercury's submission from Taiwan.
Awesome.
Hello everyone, we are Team Mercury from Taiwan. Welcome to our farm. These are aquaponics farms. It is a closed circuit of bacteria, fish, and crop plants. This is a vertical farm which utilizes space efficiently.
Wow.
In urban farming, the biggest challenge is the land areas. Vertical farms and aquaponics farms are very suitable for urban farming.
All right, here comes my favorite part. It's coming.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love it.
By utilizing these non-traditional farming concepts, we may be able to farm outside the earth in the future.
Clever.
Wow. That is definitely something that people are thinking about. What are we going to do outside of the earth?
Hope you like it. Thank you.
We love it. Are you kidding? We love
I
it.
know. My favorite thing that happens, and it happens every year, especially in these preseason challenges, is we give them this question to address, and they always are like, "Oh no, you didn't go far enough. We're gonna go further than you even suggested."
Right,
Always.
right. Yeah. All right. So, Jonathan, I'm just interested in your perspective. What do you think about what these students are doing and creating on their
Wow.
own?
Yeah, no, I'm amazed. What what wonderful examples, in both situations. It's it's really mind-boggling. Going back to the first video, with growing on top of the roof of the school. One thing that they mentioned was it can help solve the problem of having fewer successors of farm operators, there, and that's a major issue. We're seeing more people sort of get out of agriculture, and I think one of the really cool things about digital technologies is that it's exciting for one, and it can help. We can help sort of improve the how agriculture is characterized from something that perhaps people think of as low tech as something that's actually very high tech. And then I think the other sort of flip side of that is that in some countries we're seeing farm labor shortages. We just don't have enough people on the ground to help plant or to help harvest or water or what have you. And so by having robots do some of these tasks, we can really solve kind of a bottleneck problem with what's happening with our workers. And the second video, that was just so unique, so cool. I mean, it's just stacking up layer after layer after layer after layer. Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. It'll be in the United States and elsewhere. Vertical farming has a lot of potential. It has a huge amount of potential. We're not seeing as much of it here, but in places that really have limited land resources, it can really be a boon. Really just a boon to them. So, both really awesome videos.
Fantastic. All right, and we have one more that we want to share, a part of this video. Eric, you want to intro?
Yeah, so this is from the Pixel Planters in San Diego, California. And the reason I wanted to share this one is there's always one team who's like, I think I figured out what they're trying to get us to do here. Like they read our minds. And so it's like this perfect segue into our next challenge. And they're like they have 70% of the next challenge works done already.
Wow.
So they take all of those things that we were talking about, and they took what we did in challenge 1 was talk about automation on farms, and they started to bridge the gap. They started to bring those ideas together. So let's take a look at their video. This is the Pixel Planters from San Diego, California.
Hi, we're the Pixel Planters, and today we're going to show you our agricultural city. In a city landscape like this, you wouldn't usually expect for there to be much crop growth and farming, but we used our space and made farms and used what we had. Sylvia, can you explain the rooftop farms?
Hi guys. So these are our rooftop farms. Usually the tops of skyscrapers are wasted space, but in the Pixel Planter City, we're growing melons and pumpkins, beetroot, potatoes, and carrots, sweet berries, and wheat.
Thank you for your explanation, Sylvia. So now we're going to show you our vertical farming building. So inside we have different towers full of different crops like wheat, carrots, potatoes, and other stuff. So with water on top of here, and this redstone will cause the pistons to move, and that brings water down to the crops every so often. I'm going to go outside, and Danny can explain how all this redstone works.
So this repeater clock over here repeats once every about 15 seconds, and then for 5 seconds it releases the pistons to release the water down and irrigate the crops.
Okay, so next we're going to go over to here where Danny can explain his redstone contraption here of his aquaponics.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so one of the things they did was not only take those things to heart, but they've already started adding the automation. So they talked about like an automated irrigation system, automating the crop harvesting in their aquaponics farms. So they're getting ahead of us a little bit, and we're totally okay with that.
Right. So the next challenge is about automated indoor farming. I'm going to just take a second to share an experience I got to have last week. I was in Colorado and met with a company called Farmbox Foods. They will be guests for us later on, but I took a couple of pictures and I just want to share with you. I was blown away. I could not imagine how much they're growing in this tiny little space. So here I am at Farmbox Foods. This is what the farm looks like. They're repurposing containers, and inside these containers, they have these hydroponic vertical farms. This is the mix of fertilizer that goes into the water that it has, you can see right there, a reverse osmosis filter. So all the water being used is purified. They get their fertilizer. They're growing these gorgeous, in this case, it was herbs that they're growing. They have lettuce, they have mushrooms, they have all these different kinds of crops that they're growing right here in these little boxes. And you can see in the background of this one, this was a different crop. This was fodder that would be used to feed animals, but you can see the lights back there. In 1 week, they grow tons of food in one of these vertical farms. It was absolutely fascinating. And so I'm excited to see what you all come up with to show us how you would automate and create something new in a farm. So Eric, what do you have for us?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. This one, it's going to look a little weird, I guess, for a second here. And let's jump into Preseason Challenge 3, our last of our preseason challenges, which means the next time we talk to you, we're going to learn a little bit more about the regular season, which is exciting.
Woohoo! Yes.
But just to recap, if you have not yet, of course, the Register Now button is always here and waiting. And yes, of course, you can still register. Again, the team guide is now available in both English and Spanish. That was really exciting announcement we made on the last stream. It is never too late to submit these challenges. If you're just getting started, you can always go back to these challenges, to the lesson plans, to the educator guides that are there. You'll also notice these are getting updated with Spanish language educator guides as well. And that will be happening, of course, for Challenge 3 as well. So let's take a look at Challenge 3. I've already got it open. And let's take a look at the 2024 Preseason Challenge 3. And as Claire said, this is all about automating indoor farming. So we're taking what we did in Challenge 1, which was automation on traditional farms. We're taking what we did in Challenge 2, which was indoor and outdoor non-traditional farming. And we're kind of saying, all right, now put it all together, right? What can you do to put this all together? So let's scroll down to the challenge. And here we are at Challenge 3. And again, in our first 2 challenges, we focused on automating farming technologies as well as non-traditional farming practices, which are often done indoors. Indoor, and Jonathan, you used this term, controlled environment farming has changed a lot with new technology. Automation helps farmers grow crops more efficiently and control things like water and temperature. And we saw an example actually in one of these submissions for Challenge 2 of them doing that with water. These technologies could make farming better for the environment and can produce more food all year round. So here's the challenge. Design a farm that incorporates indoor non-traditional farming practices with autonomous technologies in your Minecraft world to model and demonstrate an understanding of their relationship. Now, we had some folks, and the pixel planters were not the only ones who started down this path. I saw a few other videos where they were already including some of their autonomous ideas into their worlds. But we want you to really bring it all together for this final challenge. So build on what you already have if you want to, or recreate everything from scratch, depending on what your plans are. But explain the content you include in your build and why you chose to include it. So here are some ones you could consider. We saw some examples of these. We heard Jonathan talk about other examples of these. But haven't seen all of these yet. So
we want to see some cows with Fitbits. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's right. Put some Fitbits on your cows. But things like climate and lighting control in an indoor space, which we can see right behind our students who've been on the call the whole time. Robotic systems, which is something that Jonathan mentioned, right? Right. And again, maybe you can use the agent to do this. Maybe you can kind of model and demonstrate what you think it might look like. We did see some examples of automated watering. Keep it up. We did talk a lot today about sensor and sensor data. So how can that be done in your Minecraft world, even if it is just prototyping it? And of course, harvesting and packing automation, which we saw one team, we shared a video in Challenge 1 or after Challenge 1 of a team that did exactly that for their outdoor farm. So now we're wondering, can you bring it into an automated indoor farm? And I think they did have some of that in there already because it was going throughout their farms in their example. So the idea now is to pull it all together. Everything we've seen, everything we've talked about, everything you've shared in your submissions, which have been phenomenal, bring it all together. And again, just like in the first one, the ways you can do that, depending on your level of skill or what you want to share in Minecraft, is you can prototype it. You can use redstone. We saw some examples of that. Or just like in challenge 1, you can use code, bring the agent into it, and have that agent maybe be your indoor planting or harvesting or fertilizing robot that we talked about. Some questions to consider as you're doing this. How did the automation of an outdoor farm differ from the automation of an indoor farm, and how are they alike? How are farmers, and this was a big point in the conversation today, using sensor data to maintain and produce healthy crops? What data are they collecting, and how can this data assist in automation? What part do robotics play in the future of indoor farming? And what is the most surprising thing you learned in the whole preseason? So we had a big preseason. Which future technologies interest you the most and why? And of course, just like in all of these, you'll be doing a KWL. And we've got a bunch of resources for you to take a look at, some cool videos and things like that of what is happening in the world and where the future might be headed. So have a look at some of those resources and do some research of your own. Once you've got that, of course, you will be submitting to the flip for Indoor Challenge 3. And there's that, of course, record button. But if we go back to the Farmcraft page down below, of course, you can always look at previous streams. But we did add, and it's right here, how to record your video on Flip with a YouTube tutorial, as well as the one we had previously. So if you're just getting started and you're a little late and you don't know where like that video is, like, wait, how do I submit these? All the resources you need are down here, including how to get your submissions into us. And that's going to be really important because you're going to need to know that skill and how to do that for the regular season when that starts soon.
Right. I can't believe we're almost to the regular season already, but I am super excited to see what the students come up with on this. That blend of everything we've talked about so far is so important. Students, how does this look? Does this look like something you'd be interested in creating?
Yeah, it's really cool. It looks, I'm really excited to hear more about that and to be able to create something that represents it well, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, so you have your assignment. Can't wait to see what you all create. I so appreciate everyone joining us today. Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your knowledge and just helping us understand what is actually happening out there in these farms, whether they're giant fields or smaller vertical farms. Really appreciate that. Johnny, thanks for joining us. Don't be a stranger. And Indus, Nakariana, and Ren, we really appreciate your perspective. And as always, Brian and Eric, amazing work that you do with Farmcraft. So the next stream is going to be on March 14th, and we will be launching the new world. So we will see you then. Thanks so much for joining.